Invasive fish have become seriously problematic since their introduction to America. The most problematic species include the northern snakehead, the sea lamprey, and the Asian carp. Before we really get into it, let's clarify what is invasive and what is not. The Asian carp, snakehead, which include the northern snakehead and bullseye snakehead, are invasive no matter where they are found in the US. The sea lamprey, however, are native to the East Coast, but are considered invasive in the Great Lakes. These fish destroy the American economy and collapse the biodiversity in America's waterways.
There was really no really abundant top-level piscival or fish eater. Those fish they're not used to having that kind of top-level predator. There was a lot more just smaller bodied fish, and that upset the balance of the ecosystem.
These invasive fish species can be found all the way from the Great Lakes region down to Florida. Asian carp and both species of snakehead were brought to the US for various reasons. Asian carp for food demand in the 1800s, and snakehead for their believed medicinal purposes in some Asian cultures. The sea lamprey, however, was not brought to the continental US, but swam up through canals built in the 1800s connecting the Great Lakes to the eastern seaboard of the United States of America. The economic impact of these fish is quite large. Let's take the sea lamprey for example. Since the invasion of the sea lamprey into the Great Lakes in the 1800s, the US has lost 98% of pounds of trout caught per year from the Great Lakes. From 15 million pounds a year to now only 300,000 pounds, as according to the Great Lakes Fishery Commission. According to the EPA, the sea lamprey has caused great losses to commercial and recreational fisheries of the Great Lakes. There are multiple estimates for the costs of control methods of these fish, but the former Office of Technology Assessment estimates that $10 million is spent on control methods and research, and another $10 million is spent on fish stocking, a practice that has now become necessary due to the environmental damage caused by the lamprey. The Great Lakes Fishery Commission reports direct benefits of sea lamprey control are between $2 and $4 billion, and the Office of Technology Assessments estimates indirect benefits at $500 million.
One of the threats facing our lakes is the potential entry of an invasive species, the most pressing which at this time is the threat of Asian carp entering the Great Lakes. Asian carp have no natural predators in the lakes, meaning once they enter the Great Lakes, there's no way to stop their spread. Their unrestrained growth would disrupt the entire ecosystem.
That was Representative Paul Mitchell on the threat of Asian carp in the Great Lakes. The clip was recorded in 2017, but since then, there have been more studies that have indicated that the threat of Asian carp is greater than we have thought. The Alliance for the Great Lakes Vice President for Policy, Molly Flanagan, has said, the quote, "We are on the verge of an unstoppable crisis for the Great Lakes region, and now is our best chance to stop these aggressive fish from crashing our economy and environment." The study said that carp could sustain themselves across 97% of the Great Lakes. The fish pose a great threat to the $7 billion industry that the area depends on. Another example of economic damage being threatened by an invasive fish.
These carp are, large fish and do not provide, much in the way of forage because they're too big. So our sport fish pounds per acre, biomass had declined. As I recall, the shad and the sport fish declined something like 90%.
Carp pose an existential threat to the Great Lakes if they ever enter them. The greatest threat posed by the snakehead, however, is unrestrained and uncontrollable growth. Snakehead are notoriously difficult to control, unlike the sea lamprey or carp.
When snakehead first showed up in the Potomac, all agencies, state agencies, federal agencies have electric fishing boats and stuff, so we all went out and tried to catch as many as we could. And that works, but it only worked, so well. So snakehead are pretty hard to catch in big numbers. The impact is going to be, it actually starts kind of with what's most abundant. It's because that's, at least with something like snakeheads. So snakeheads are a generalist piscivore, so they largely eat fish and only fish. And because they're a generalist, that means they can eat anything. So that in turn reflects on what's most abundant. What was most abundant in the Blackwater were things like white perch, other types of sunfish like bluegill and pumpkin seed, and those were the species we saw decline in greatest numbers.
Invasive fish are a serious danger to the American economy and many of its ecosystems. Each of these three fish have potential to cause great monetary or environmental harm, and they are destroying the fish Americans love. It is imperative that the political candidates address this issue in the upcoming election.